Welcome to 217 Kolok YT. The fight starts, and Scyllid summons his ice golems to fight. Quaratia, using her power, resurrects the defeated hunters to fight Jinwoo, and all of them start to attack him. But Jinwoo was too fast for the minions, and he easily dodges all the incoming attacks from them and leaps towards Scyllid. Seeing this, Scyllid is surprised, but before Jinwoo can get close to him, Rocken stops him, and they start to exchange blows. Seeing the weapon in Jinwoo's hand, Rocken asks if he really thinks he can damage him with a mere piece of metal. But to his horror, Jinwoo chops off his hand, saying, "I'm sure I couldn't have if it was just any other piece of metal." But before he could deliver the final blow, Quaratia intervenes and saves Rocken. Using this distraction, Rocken also reattaches his severed hand, and Jinwoo notices that he is surrounded by all the minions and monarchs. As he is thinking of his next move, one of the shadow soldiers breaks free from the ice, and as Jinwoo looks at it, he sees it was Baru, who was furious and was charging towards Quaratia, saying, "That insect woman dared to lay her hands on my liege." Seeing Baru, Scyllid and Rocken are surprised and wonder how a commander-level entity could be in the hands of a human, while Quaratia prepares to fight, saying, "A child who doesn't recognize their mother needs to be punished." Baru is too strong and slices through her ability with no effort, leaving her stunned. He kneels before Jinwoo, telling him, "You weren't being pushed back even when fighting against those of a superior species. As expected of my lord, I have never failed to be amazed by your limitless strength." As they are talking, Quaratia's minions are coming straight towards them, and Jinwoo, along with Baru, slices through all of the minions with ease. But from the back, Quaratia attacks, taking out Baru and landing a hit on Jinwoo, who goes flying into a building. As he is lying in the rubble, Scyllid starts to rain down ice projectiles on Jinwoo. Jinwoo gets back up and starts to block against the incoming projectiles. Seeing this, Scyllid asks, "How much longer can you hold out against our pincer attack?" As he looks down, he is stabbed in the heart, and Jinwoo tells him, "I've already told you that you won't be getting out of here alive." Scyllid gets furious and shouts at Jinwoo, saying, "You insolent fool! A human like you dares say such a thing to a monarch such as myself?" He pulls out the weapon from his chest. Seeing this, Jinwoo thinks, he was hit in the heart. I guess that much isn't enough to be fatal for them, and throws an attack hitting Scyllid directly. But as he looks at him, he notices Scyllid smirking, and before he could react, Rocken was already behind him, summoning his weapon. He slices Jinwoo's back, and Jinwoo starts to bleed. Seeing this, Baru loses it. But before he could do anything, Quaratia appears behind him, saying, "My name is Quaratia, the monarch of plagues. I am the mother of every insect in existence." She grabs Baru, saying, "Even though you are an ungrateful insect who doesn't recognize their mother, I will still embrace you as one of my children." While Jinwoo is on his knees after taking a fatal hit, Rocken, seeing his condition, tells him, "This is the end for you." Baru calls out to all the soldiers, saying, "What are you doing? Hurry up and assist our lord." Hearing him, Greed starts to break through the ice, saying, "I will be the one cutting the last breath of the enemy." Seeing him, Rocken says he must have been a stronger warrior in his lifetime. Scyllid informs him that the high-ranking shadow soldiers have started to appear, and we see Tusk, along with Igris and Iron, breaking through the ice prison. Seeing this, Scyllid turns towards Jinwoo, saying, "Your wounds are fatal," and prepares to end this, saying, "Playtime is long over." Jinwoo, smirking, asks, "Are you talking about this?" Both of them were shocked to see Jinwoo, who was getting back up on his feet, and his wounds were also healed after using his ability. Status effect recovery. People watching the battle between the monarchs from all around the world, which was being live-streamed. Meanwhile, the city had turned into a battlefield as all of them collided, destroying everything in the vicinity. Leonard was watching their battle from a distance in horror. Thomas was also regaining consciousness after being healed and asked Leonard about the situation. Leonard told him, "It's like I'm witnessing the end of the world." Beck was also watching the battle, wondering if this was the same Jinwoo they knew. He commented that while he knew Jinwoo had the ability to grow stronger, just how much stronger did he become in such a short amount of time? On the battlefield, Jinwoo, along with his soldiers, was starting to overpower the Monarchs, and they were struggling to keep up with their regeneration. Quretia, furious as Baru was overpowering her, decided to finish him off. But before she could, Jinwoo approached her, saying, "The architect told me a prophecy, that I would die from the pillar of flames that holds up the world. But he didn't tell me whether that pillar will actually fall or not." From a distance, the Fiend Guild Master Lim was watching the battle from atop a building. He commented, "I've been standing by for a long time so I could snipe, but I don't think this is a fight I can interfere in." Since 30 minutes ago, the elite assassins of the Fiend Guild had been dispatched to buildings around the area to provide support fire when given the signal. Lim thought, when we do that, how many of us will survive? If they fail, all of them might die, as even Thomas Andre wasn't able to subdue those monsters. It's about time we make decisions. As he was thinking this, a hand reached out to him from behind, telling him, "Just sit back and watch." He turned toward the person, asking for their identity, but was stunned to see who it was. Meanwhile, of all the hunters gathered to subjugate the magic beasts, not a single one was able to interfere with the ongoing fight. They were simply waiting for everything to settle. Back in the fight, Jinwoo managed to land a solid hit on Quretia, but that wasn't enough to take out the Queen of Insects, who started to regenerate. She attacked Jinwoo using poison, and a notification opened up, stating the venom effects were still present in the atmosphere. Jinwoo told her, "Poison won't work on me." Seeing this, Quretia was enraged and charged toward Jinwoo, saying, "I will rip you apart into pieces." But before she could finish her sentence, she felt something and realized it was Jinwoo pulling her toward himself. Seeing this, she thought, "An overwhelming authority. I can't undo it." As she was pinned to the ground, Jinwoo used mutilation, directly hitting Quretia, and she started to disintegrate in the air. In her final moments, she said, "So this must be death, a heavy darkness that humbles even us, who were created from darkness." She disappeared into the air, and Jinwoo received a notification telling him he had defeated Quretia, the Monarch of Plagues. Seeing this, Silid was in disbelief, saying, "How is this possible? He shouldn't be able to use the Shadow Monarch's power to its full extent yet." He asked Rakan, "So, we will experience it again? Fear toward one of the strongest monarchs?" Rakan told him not to worry, as Jinwoo was exhausted. Grabbing Baru by the neck, Rakan said, "The fact that he's relying on these small fries implies that he is still incomplete. An incomplete monarch can't get in the way of true monarchs." As he started to crush Baru, Jinwoo noticed that Baru's existence was fading. He wondered if this was how he managed to get rid of the shadow that was put on Thomas Andrew. Panicking, Jinwoo tried to cancel the summon, ordering Baru to return. However, he was horrified to see a notification telling him, "You cannot retract the specified subject." He jumped in to attack Rakan, saving Baru in the process. As he put Baru back, he thought, "I managed to prevent Baru from being extinguished." However, he looked at Silid, who was saying, "King of Beasts, you are right." Silid covered an enormous area in ice and fully transformed. He told Jinwoo, "You are confident in your powers in controlling puppets like these, so we simply need to cut the strings so you can't control them anymore. I will trap the puppets under my authority and make them go through healing and resurrection over and over again. Then your soldiers will be nothing but parasites that eat away at your mana." He attacked Jinwoo, asking, "What will you do now?" He managed to injure Jinwoo's arm, using his strength to lift him into the air and slam him to the ground, thinking, "He's not there yet." But Jinwoo leaped out of the rubble and attacked Silid. However, Silid dodged and struck back with such force that Jinwoo was launched backward. Jinwoo managed to land on his feet, thinking, "He's fast." Looking at Jinwoo's condition, Silid said, "Your stealth skill must have a heavy mana consumption," and leaped toward Jinwoo, saying, "I will end this quickly." As they exchanged blows, Jinwoo thought, "I can see all his movements, but if only I could be just a little bit faster." Looking at him, Silid said, "I don't know what you are plotting, but it's no use," and attacked using his ice magic. However, by that time, Jinwoo was already behind him, thinking, "I got him." but he saw Scyllid smirking and sensed something. Everyone was horrified to see that Rakan had managed to sneak up behind Jinwoo, piercing through his chest with his claws. Rakan said, "I guess you're nothing without the speed you're so confident in." Jinwoo looked down at Rakan's claws as his weapons fell to the ground. He thought, "My level increased. This much is nothing." Scyllid picked up Jinwoo's dagger, stabbing him, and said, "I will return your weapon to you. Can you heal like you did earlier?" He added, "Probably not. No matter how strong you are, you're not a complete monarch." He asked Jinwoo, "Is this as far as you can go, human? If that's the case, you will not be able to witness it the moment our armies set foot in this world. When that happens, there will be a mountain of human corpses, and their blood will form endless rivers. But this country, which you grew up in, will be different. I shall personally freeze every single human in this country myself and make them suffer through eternal agony. They will live through an eternity, unable to die or live. So show me your endless contempt for me within your death. That will also be part of my joy." As Jinwoo was being frozen, he thought he needed to hold on just a little longer. A notification opened up, telling him his HP had reached 0 and the player had died. However, another notification showed up, telling him that the player was in possession of the Black Heart and had met all the requirements for a passive skill. The skill was activated, and the screen filled with a bright light. Afterward, Jinwoo woke up. As he sat up, he realized he was in a hospital and started to panic, thinking about his fight with the Monarchs. He wondered, was all of that just a dream? And thinks that he was certain the ice dagger pierced through his heart and wonders how he was still alive. As he was thinking, Woo, along with another man, started to enter the room, asking Jinwoo if he had come back to his senses. Seeing him, Jinwoo was surprised and asked what happened to the Monarchs, calling him the chairman, and asked how he was still alive. Hearing that, Woo was surprised. He tells Jinwoo, "There are 3 things I should tell you. Firstly, I am not the chairman but the chief inspector of the surveillance team. Secondly, I would like to ask you about the moving statues. And thirdly, how do you know who I am?" Jinwoo wasn't able to process what he was talking about. Woo tells him that when they arrived at the site with the White Tigers Guild, it was already over. Jinwoo tells him that's not what he was talking about. Seeing the situation, Jinwoo realizes that he has somehow traveled back in time. Looking at his condition, Woo asks if he is all right. Jinwoo tells him he needs time to rearrange his thoughts and walks out of the hospital. He looks at his stats and items in his inventory, thinking everything is the same as before. He even had Kamish's wrath. As he was thinking, he heard a voice asking why he wasn't resting. It was Jaina, who asked him if he hurt his head too in the dungeon. Looking at his appearance, she wondered if she came into the wrong room, asking, "Who are you?" Jinwoo thinks, "I guess she can't recognize me because I gradually changed into my current looks back in the future," and asks her, "Can you really not recognize your older brother?" She asks him, "Are you sure you're my older brother? I feel like you've become different, and you've grown quite a bit as well." Jinwoo, ignoring the question, tells her, "It's probably your feeling," and starts to walk away, saying, "I'm a little busy. I need to head to the Hunters Association." She asks him the reason for this, and Jinwoo tells her, "I need to inform them that I'm giving up being a hunter." He asks her to return to school, saying, "I know that you came over in the middle of class." And turning towards Han Song-yi, he tells her, "Don't ever think about giving up on studying to become a hunter." She was surprised, wondering how he knew her name. He puts on his hood, thinking, "I don't have my shadow soldiers, so I just need to rebuild my army," and wonders, how could this be happening? He arrives at the association building to have his rank reevaluated, and the men talk about how he is the first S rank in 2 years. They tell him their device can't measure his magic power, and Jinwoo tells them, "Before we do it again, I would like to meet the chairman." The men tell him they will guide him to his room, and he starts to walk away, saying, "I already know where it is." Seeing him go, they wonder how an outsider like him knows where the chairman's room is. Going up the elevator, he sees another man standing with him, thinking, "What kind of scenario should I make up today? It's not my first time making up lies to the association, and if I get caught by Chief Inspector Woo, I'd be in big trouble." He hears Jinwoo saying, "You possess a stealth skill, and yet you haven't reported the fact." Hearing that, the man starts to reach for his weapon, saying, "How do you know that?" Jinwoo tells him, "Someone will ask you to avenge their daughter for them." He continues, "I'm not interested in what you do with criminals, but if you hurt innocent hunters during that incident, you will die by my hands." Seeing his weapons in his hands, the man is stunned, and Jinwoo tells him, "You only get one warning." As Jinwoo entered the chairman's office, his eyes widened, and he said, "It's been forever since I last saw him." As he saw Chairman Go-gun, he's sitting in front of him. Seeing him, the chairman says, "Seeing how you came to look for me as soon as you got back your test results, I assume you are somewhat familiar with the procedures." Seeing Jinwoo emotional, he asks him if he is all right, and Jinwoo tells him it's nothing. As they sit down, the chairman tells Jinwoo, "I will get straight to the point." And Jinwoo stops him, saying, "There is a deal I would like to tell you about." He asks the chairman to change the regulations so that even summoned creatures can be counted as raid members by the association. Proposing this, Jinwoo offers that if the chairman agrees, he would go to Jeju Island and rid it of the ant monsters. The chairman, shocked after hearing that, tells Jinwoo not to say something so ridiculous, reminding him how many times they have failed on the Jeju Island raid already. But as he looks at Jinwoo, he senses an overwhelming amount of mana, and Jinwoo tells him, "It's something only I can accomplish," assuring him that he will take care of the ants on the island. The chairman was at a loss for words, thinking Jinwoo possessed a power that far exceeded that of a national-level hunter. After that, he goes through all the adventures again, from saving Lee Ju-hee to his first Red Gate incident. He defeats the High Orcs and turns Tusk into his Shadow Soldier, saves his mother from eternal slumber, and finally makes his way to Jeju Island, where he turns Baru into his Shadow Soldier along with all the insect monsters inhabiting the island. And that is when he realizes something and asks, "Why don't you stop this?" He shouts, "I know all of this is an illusion, so stop this charade and reveal yourself. How much longer are you planning to look down on me from above?" As he stands there, looking above, the illusion stops, and he is surrounded by notifications asking if he wants to restart the world. Seeing this, Jinwoo asks for the identity of the entity. As the one responsible appears, Jinwoo recognizes him as the King of the Dead. The king asks Jinwoo, "If you want to, you could live in this world for eternity. It would be like never waking up from the most wonderful dream." Hearing that, Jinwoo asks, "Are you telling me to be trapped within this illusion you have created?" The king replies, "No, I did not create this world. You are responsible for its creation. It's a world created by combining your desire to correct your mistakes up until now with my power. In other words, this is my territory. This is the eternal rest. This is death." He tells Jinwoo, "I have been watching you for far longer than you could possibly imagine. You, who had always been closer than anyone to death, yet so desperately resisting it. I am the record of your struggles, the evidence of your resistance, and the reward of your suffering. I am death. I am eternal rest, as well as terror. I am you. And within my territory, you are able to do anything you want. You are able to turn my servants into yours and absorb my power from them. Although it is only possible within this territory, the power to create, destroy, and change the world." Hearing all that, Jinwoo asks, "Are you saying that you and I possess the same power?" The king tells Jinwoo, "I've been waiting for the day we finally meet for a very long time now. I am the Shadow Monarch and the administrator of the deepest part of the darkness." Jinwoo asks, "Why was I chosen?" The monarch replies, "I shall show you our beginning and end, and also your beginning." The story shifts back to the city where Jinwoo was fighting off the monarchs. Looking at him, Rakan tells Sillid, "He's dead for sure." Leonard also tells the same thing to Thomas, that Jinwoo's presence disappeared just now. Hearing that, Beck says, "That's impossible. So now there isn't anyone who can stop those magical beasts." Lim, from the top of the building, thinks, "I shouldn't have listened to that person earlier," and wonders if they can stop the creatures if they bombard them right now. He decides to attack, instructing his hunters to prepare to fire. "We will fire at once on my signal," he says. "Our target is that magical beast who looks like a White Walker." As he was preparing to attack, Jinwoo started to emit massive amounts of mana, shocking Sillid. He saw Jinwoo's black heart burning with dark flame. Seeing this, Both Scyllid and Rakan realize something, and they both charge toward Jinwoo, saying, "We must stop the true king from descending after the fake king has died." As they both get close, Rakan gets kicked in the face by someone, crashing into Scyllid, and they both go flying into a nearby building. A man stands in front of Jinwoo, who is still inside the prison Scyllid made, and he tells both of them, "None shall touch this child." And we see the history of the Shadow Monarch in the distant past. An absolute split the light and dark to create his emissaries. From the light and from the dark, he created the 8 sovereigns. Emissaries were born to maintain the world, and the sovereigns were born to destroy the world. Both factions continuously killed each other. Fatigued by the constant, unending war, the brightest fragment of brilliant light asked the Absolute, "Why are you ignoring the screams of the countless soldiers dying for you?" He asked for the Absolute to lend them his strength so they could fight in his honor. But the Absolute did not reply. At that moment, the fragment of brilliant light realized. To the Absolute, the battle between themselves and the sovereigns is nothing more than entertainment, and he does not want the war to end. They learned that even if they abided by the law of the Absolute, only death awaited them. As long as the Absolute exists, the war will never end, so to end this meaningless war, they unsheathed their blades. It was the start of the rebellion. The monarch points, saying, "That is me of the distant past." He tells Jinwoo, "I was the sole emissary who stood up against the rebellion of the other emissaries, but my pitiful number of soldiers powerlessly fell before the united armies of the emissaries. When I thought it was the end, I reopened my eyes within the darkness and realized that the Absolute had hidden a certain power inside me. On that day, the Shadow Monarch was born. Using his powers, he resurrected the defeated armies and led them to the battlefront. However, when he returned, everything was already over. The remaining fragments of brilliant light had killed the Absolute and called themselves the new rulers. Using various tools containing the power of the Absolute, they hunted down the sovereigns. As a result, the king of giants, Legia, was captured by the rulers, and the power balance between the two sides collapsed. He tells Jinwoo that the sovereigns realized the severity of the situation, and he used that moment to reach out to them. They had no choice but to combine forces with me in order to combat our common enemy, the rulers. From then on, I continued the long-lasting battle, as neither a fragment of brilliant light nor an emissary of the Absolute, but as the Shadow Monarch. I strengthened my army by gathering soldiers that remained on the battlefield, and when I combined forces with the army of destruction led by the king of berserk dragons, the monarchs as well as the rulers came to fear me. 2 of the monarchs who feared me aimed for my back after combining forces, and due to that, my shadow army was nearly annihilated. The strength that was too powerful brought me betrayal, while the king of beasts, the beast monarch, ran away after abandoning his soldiers. The king of the demons, the monarch of white flames, Baron, had to pay the ultimate price. But then the rulers started to descend from the sky. They surrounded the Shadow Monarch and kneeled in front of him, asking for his forgiveness, saying, "There is no reason for us to fight any longer." Even though they possessed enough power to send me back to nothingness if they wanted to, they chose to pursue peace. It was the least respect they could have shown me for the time I was their ally, fighting on the front lines while leading the army of brilliant light. Hearing their apology, the Shadow Monarch asks them, "Have you not harmed my liege with your swords and spears?" They tell him he was also their master. Hearing that, the Shadow Monarch gets furious and tells them, "This is precisely why your crimes are even more heinous." The fragment tells him, "You should understand better than anyone how we felt when we raised our banners of rebellion against our master. We simply wanted to end this war." Hearing this, the Shadow Monarch tells them, "Pierce my heart with your spear. This is the end that you so desperately seek. You shall finally become the victors of this war." But the fragments asked him once more to find it in his heart to forgive them, as all the armies surrounded him, showing him their respect. The Shadow Monarch tells Jinwoo that he was overwhelmed and was unable to come up with any kind of solution. So, he decided to hide for the sake of revenge. Since he had trapped the Monarch of White Flames within him, he was planning on striking the forces of the Beast Monarch after letting his body recover. But while he was hiding, the Monarchs, who had lost the majority of their power, were defeated by the rulers. When he reappeared in front of the monarchs, who took their chances to escape to the cracks between dimensions, the king of the dragons did not permit any kind of fight, knowing that it was time for them to recover their strength. As such, he gladly allowed me to join his forces. We went searching for a new world for the sake of building up our new army. The Shadow Monarch continued. Hearing all of that, Jinwoo asks if it was Earth he was talking about. The Shadow Monarch tells him, yes, that is correct, and shows Jinwoo the destroyed cities. Jinwoo thinks, I've seen this scene before. This is the demon castle, and asks, is this what will happen in the future? The monarch tells him, this is a recording of the past. Hearing that, Jinwoo asks, what are you talking about? He explains that in the past, the rulers were late to detect the movements of the sovereigns, and by the time they arrived, everything had come to an end. By then, the rulers grew angry that the army of the chaos world, which they had failed to eradicate, managed to bring destruction upon another world. In order to correct this, they used their tool containing the power of the Absolute, which they had prohibited themselves from using, a tool called the Cup of Reincarnation. It had the ability to turn back time by 10 years. The rulers used everything they had in order to save this world, but the current Earth was far too weak to fight against the monarchs. Whether the monarchs or the rulers won the battle, the impact brought upon this planet would remain the same. So, the rulers made a drastic decision. If they couldn't save everyone, they wanted to make sure that at least some would survive so those people could continue on in this world. Jinwoo asks if that is why the hunters were created. He explains, yes, they were making human beings capable of surviving the collision between the two forces. The rulers wanted the humans to survive, no matter what they had to do. Jinwoo thinks the Demon King is a fragment of memories left behind by the Shadow Monarch, and asks if this world has already gone through countless annihilations. The Shadow Monarch replies, indeed. Although the higher beings are not able to go against the flow of time, they are able to perceive the change in the flow of time created by the Cup of Reincarnation. He tells Jinwoo, now, the cup is unusable. Jinwoo, surprised, asks, how is that possible? He tells Jinwoo, the cup did not possess infinite power. Just like the Absolute, who was eliminated by his own creations, there is a limit to every power. Jinwoo asks how the creations were able to kill the Absolute. He explains, it's no different from humans dying from machines they created. We were created to fight, and our powers were more than enough to bring down our own creator. He goes on to say that the sovereigns utilized the rulers' methods to create a plan of their own, similar to how the rulers lent power to humans so they could kill magical beasts and strengthen the world. Sovereigns would also borrow a human body to descend onto the world and bring their armies far earlier than the rulers had expected. They planned to use the magical energy that had spread around the planet by the rulers to turn the entirety of Earth into one large trap. In order for them to cross over into this world, they needed a host body capable of handling their power. But because the Shadow Monarch and the Monarch of Destruction possessed powers too great, they could not find humans suitable to be their hosts at that time. One of the most capable mage working under a king came to the Shadow Monarch with a proposal. He was willing to find him a suitable human. That mage, called the Architect, asserted that they would give him assistance, but only for an imperishable body in return. Unfortunately, no living thing could become a vessel to contain death. The Architect used the system he designed to search for one talented in sensing magic power, one with prodigious physical power, one with superiority, and one with great mentality. He searched for a human whose strength would match the Shadow Monarch's power. And so, he found someone who bested his system, someone who rewrote the rules of his game and exceeded his expectations. It was you, he tells Jinwoo, who was always weak, always closest to death, and yet evaded death again and again. I watched you, and even in opposition to the Architect, I picked you. So, I shall say it once more. I am the record of your struggles, the evidence of your resistance, and the reward of your pain. Hearing all that, Jinwoo asks, even though I had exceeded the Architect's expectations, I must not have been enough to handle your power, right? The Shadow Monarch explains that the Architect used objects of human skill and human preferences to adjust to his strength. He used games and recreations to fuel Jinwoo's amusement. The Architect's system, which used the Shadow Monarch's power, transformed Jinwoo's body slowly by leveling it up to match the desired level. Jinwoo asks, "Why did you betray the architect?" The Shadow Monarch tells him, "The ruler's apology, the betrayal of the monarchs. I pondered on which side I should stand on, so I made a decision, and I wanted it to be that way. As the time I spent with you was so blissful, perhaps I did not want to lose you." He tells Jinwoo, "In all this time, I became you and you became me. So no matter who becomes the owner of this body, it will not be strange, for we are already one. Therefore, I will offer you a choice. You can stay in this domain of death and enjoy the eternal dreams you've created for yourself. But if that is not your choice, you will be sent to reality once more. You will have to fight your adversaries." Hearing all that, Jinwoo asks, "You said you had made your decision, but you did not stand with the leaders. So why did you escape to the other world with the monarchs, even though your will to fight the rulers had long dissipated?" The monarchs tell him, "It was because that place did not offer a place for me." Hearing that, Jinwoo tells him, "My answer is the same. This is not a place where I should be." Hearing his answer, the monarch gets happy as he walks away. Jinwoo asks, "Is this the last time I will be seeing you?" He tells Jinwoo, "I will return to rest, but you, the Shadow Monarch, will live an imperishable life. Thus, the crossing of our paths is quite unlikely. With death, your power has become absolute. The way to go back is..." Before he could finish, Jinwoo tells him, "I know." The Shadow Monarch tells him, "Because I am you." Scyllid and Rakan witnessing the rebirth of Jinwoo. They ask the man, calling him a fragment of brilliant light, saying, "The worst disaster is coming from the body of the human you are trying to protect. Are you really trying to bring disaster upon this world by your own hands? Are you really risking your life to aid the Shadow Monarch's revival? Just what are you traitors thinking?" Rakan tells Scyllid, "We don't have much time," and he prepares to stop Jinwoo from gaining his full power. Seeing this, the man also prepares to fight to buy time for Jinwoo to recover. With lightning-fast speed, all of them charge toward each other as the fight begins. Scyllid closes in and attacks the fragment using his trident, but the fragment was too fast and managed to dodge the strike. From above, he sees Rakan's claw coming straight toward him, and before the attack connects, the fragment, using his speed, dodges and gets behind Scyllid, stabbing him in the shoulder. Seeing this, Scyllid thinks, "He's reading the trajectory of my spear and moving accordingly." As they were unable to land a single hit on the fragment, Rakan thinks, "He has the movement of a warrior who has experienced countless battles. He's barely avoiding the Frost Monarch's attacks and fending off all of mine at the same time." As Rakan is distracting him, Scyllid sneaks up behind the fragment, preparing to freeze him in place. But the fragment is too fast, kicking Scyllid under his chin, launching him into the air and smashing him into a building. As this happens, Rakan closes in, opens his mouth, and prepares to bite the fragment to shreds. Instead, he gets pierced through the face and screams out in pain. Before he can recover, the fragment delivers an elbow to his ribs, sending him flying a couple of feet back. Furious, Rakan rips out the dagger from his face, saying, "I will tear you apart," but he falls to the ground, shaking. He turns to look at Jinwoo and senses the overwhelming mana being emitted by him. Terrified, he jumps back, creating distance between himself and Jinwoo. By this time, Scyllid has also recovered. As he tells the fragment, "That won't work on me again," he turns towards Rakan, instructing him to attack again. But Rakan tells him, "I will stop now." Scyllid is shocked after hearing that and asks if Rakan is going to stop after coming this far, wondering if he's out of his mind. Rakan tells him, "Can't you feel it? The mana surrounding us has started to cry." He says, "The Shadow Monarch is coming." He opens up a portal, saying, "Count me out of this." Scyllid asks, "Didn't you promise to help me defeat the Shadow Monarch?" Rakan replies, "My promise was limited to when the Shadow Monarch was in his human form. But since the real monarch is coming, I no longer have a promise to keep." Scyllid tries to stop him, saying, "You're running away with your tail between your legs, even though you're the Beast Monarch." Rakan replies, "You won't understand me because you have yet to experience the full power of the Shadow Monarch." He teleports away, saying, I shall pray for your fortune. After he leaves, Scylla decides to stay and fight. He tells the fragment, taste the terror of the frost. This is my true power. He buries his trident into the ground, and the area starts to get covered in an ice storm. Seeing this, Lim instructs his hunters, we are retreating. Leave this place at once. The ice converts into spears that rain down on the fragment, giving Scylla enough time to prepare for a powerful attack. He screams, mere humans dare challenge me without knowing their place. As a gigantic piece of ice manifests in the sky, he tells the fragment, be trapped inside the eternal void with the Shadow Monarch. Seeing the size of the ice, the fragment thinks, is he planning to destroy this entire area? He gets hit by one of the incoming projectiles, losing his arm in the process. He looks in horror as the ice starts to fall towards him, but before it can crash down, a shadow leaps toward it, shattering the ice. We see that it's Beru, who had returned in the battlefield and is now more powerful than before. On the ground, the Shadow Monarch had appeared in his true form, shielding the fragment. He told Scylla, do not assume the position of the king with such measly power. Scylla stands there, stunned, thinking, he broke out of my spell, which means the commander rank shadow soldiers have regained their powers. Seeing this, Jinwoo starts to come out of his armor, revealing his true body, saying, that's why I shouldn't trust prophecies. All of his soldiers were free, and they kneeled in front of him. He asks, did the beast flee? Scylla's expression changes upon hearing him say, who dares to leave without my permission? Horrified, Scylla thinks, it's a wall I couldn't even imagine overcoming. The difference in power between me and him is just too significant. As he thinks this, a dark bubble starts to form around Jinwoo, gradually covering most of the city. It grows until it can be seen from space, covering half of the earth. As the bubble disappears, Jinwoo says, found you. Thinking he was distracted, Scylla believes he has an opening that will never come again. He gathers all of his mana for one final attack, thinking, although there exists a power gap between us, for him to let his guard down with his enemy right in front of him. If I miss this opportunity, the only thing waiting for me is inevitable death. I must end everything with this single strike. He throws his trident toward Jinwoo, but Jinwoo effortlessly stops it with his hand, shattering the weapon into pieces. Seeing this, Scylla thinks, how is this possible? So this is the power of the Shadow Monarch, one of the strongest monarchs. Instead of striking back, Jinwoo tells him to wait, saying he will save him for later. Wait patiently until I finish taking care of the beast. Somewhere in a forest, a portal appears, and from it, Rakan emerges. He thinks, the aura of death is starting to close in on me. I regret needlessly arguing with the Frost Monarch since it caused me to run away a bit too late. But now that things have come to this, I need to quickly hide here until the King of Dragons comes back. As he thinks this, a shadow appears behind him. Sensing it, he turns around, thinking, this aura. Don't tell me. He freezes in fear, sensing Jinwoo behind him. He thinks, the air is soaked with the smell of death. He gets to his knees, thinking, the overwhelming power gap. I can't win or run away. The fear of strength I feel from my experiences. He tells himself to lower his head and obey. He tells Jinwoo, I, the king of beasts, do not wish to fight against you. Please forgive me for my sinful acts and accept me as one of your allies. In the near future, the King of Dragons will set foot on this land with his soldiers, and I, along with my beast army, shall assist you. Hearing all this, Jinwoo agrees to spare his life. Rakan, smirking, thinks, he fell for it. How foolish. He isn't the real deal. If he were, there'd be no way he would forgive me, especially after I betrayed him once again and tried to get rid of his vessel. I bought time thanks to the human's foolish forgiveness and affection. I just need to hold out until the King of Dragons gets here, and when that time comes, I will rip your corpse into pieces. But outside, Rakan tells Jinwoo, I shall serve you with loyalty. Seeing this, Jinwoo tells him, before that, we need to take care of something. I have 5 scars from your claws that pierced my heart. If you can survive 5 attacks from me, I will forgive you. Hearing that, Rakan gets furious. fully transforming. He says, "You dare mock me, the king of beasts?" He tells Jinwoo, "Although my life will end here, you will not leave unscathed." Seeing his towering, monstrous form, Jinwoo summons his dagger, preparing to fight. With lightning-fast speed, he passes by Raken as a streak of light. As Jinwoo reappears behind him, Raken has still not noticed what happened. Blood starts to fall from his body, and he realizes he's missing a limb. As he notices what has happened, Jinwoo tells him, "4 more left." Back in Korea, Baru is healing all the injured hunters. Looking at him, Scylla thinks, "I don't know about that ant who is healing humans, but this one is certainly an issue." He sees Igris coming straight towards him and thinks, "I've seen it before." The Knight of Death, one of the 2 wings of the Shadow Army, he is Igris. While running, he thinks, now that it's able to use its full power, it's quite bothersome. They can regenerate as long as the Shadow Monarch still has mana, but I can't recover the mana I used for transformation. As he lands, he tells Igris, "Don't even think about doing something so meaningless. You think you can hold out much longer against me?" Igris stops, burying his sword into the ground, and from his cloak, Jinwoo starts to appear. As he emerges, he throws 2 teeth on the ground and tells Scylla, "The Beast Monarch is dead." Hearing that, Scylla thinks, he killed the Beast Monarch in the few minutes that he was gone. Jinwoo tells him, "The Plague Monarch, the Beast Monarch, and the Frost Monarch. The deaths of these 3 will serve as a warning to the other monarchs." Hearing that, Scylla prepares to fight, summoning his ice projectiles, but before he can attack, a dagger stabs him in his heart and another pierces his shoulder. Desperate, he tries to attack Jinwoo with what little mana he has left. But Jinwoo grabs him by the mouth, preventing him from doing that, and slashes him, saying, "The Beast Monarch died on the 4th strike. I wonder how much longer you can survive." Scylla lets out a loud scream, turning back to his human form, and starts to break down into pieces, disappearing into the air. After taking out all the monarchs, Jinwoo asks Baru, "Where is the person who was protecting me earlier?" Baru tells him, "He disappeared all of a sudden." We see the man sitting as he manages to drag himself away from the battle. He sees his hand breaking down into pieces and thinks, "I guess this is the consequence of receiving this power with a mere human's body." Accepting his fate, he says, "It's fine. This is how it should be." A dagger falls near him and someone asks, "Did you really think I wouldn't know if you left like that?" It was Jinwoo asking, "Why did you leave without a word?" He calls him his father. The story shifts back to a dungeon where Jinwoo's father was trapped. He tells Jinwoo what happened on that day. After clearing the dungeon boss of the gate, you must escape the gate within an hour. However, I had no choice but to be trapped within the dimensional rift. The rulers lent me their strength and requested I stop the monarchs, including the Shadow Monarch, who was soon to be born. After losing all means of escape, I had no choice but to accept their offer. I returned to Earth as the ruler's emissary with a heavy responsibility. However, I was not able to fulfill that responsibility. Although I knew that the worst calamity of humanity resided inside that body, I couldn't do anything other than observe from a distance. Meanwhile, the rulers, whose sole focus was to stop the complete advent of the Shadow Monarch, started to change their stance. Finally, the brightest fragment of light issued me a new order: to protect the Shadow Monarch, as they had realized that to stop the monarch's plan, they needed the power of the Shadow Monarch. Only his army was able to stop the King of Dragons, who was going to arrive before the soldiers of Brilliant Light, along with his armies. It was a huge gamble, not knowing whether he would side with the humans or the monsters, but now we know the results, and that is why I helped you. I didn't want to show you this side of me. Tears started to fall from Jinwoo's eyes after hearing that. His father asks, "Did you hate me?" Jinwoo tells him, "Sometimes," and he apologizes. Jinwoo explains, "When I first started out as a hunter, when I was at death's door and barely survived to see Mom and Jaina again, you appeared in my mind, and I always hated you whenever it happened. But I also missed you." He pauses and asks, "Did you miss us?" His father, unable to control his emotions, tells him, "I missed you all the time. Even though you could not see me, I was happy about the fact that I was able to see you from afar." He gets up, hugging Jinwoo, saying, you've grown well. Jinwoo asks him, is it the rulers? Are they the ones who controlled you and are now throwing you away? His father tells him, they simply gave me an opportunity to make a choice. I chose to protect you, and I don't regret a single thing about it. But now, I want to talk to you more. I want to stay with you longer. I'm sorry that I couldn't be a great father to you. After saying that, he disappeared into the air, and Jinwoo was left standing there alone. He lets out a scream in anger. The story shifts to his mother and sister. His mother was looking out the window, and she calls Jaina, telling her, let's move now. With tears in her eyes, she says, we can move now. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, in his frustration, shouts out to the remaining monarchs, you will definitely pay the price for what happened today. So, the day that the Shadow Monarch's outcries shook the world was the day when the prelude to war rose. We see a drone flying over the city as someone reports that Hunter Thomas is not in a life-threatening condition. We can see ambulances on the scene, transporting the injured to local hospitals. Things were starting to settle down for the time being. We see Chairman Wu looking at the destruction caused by the battle between the monarchs, thinking, the beast-type demon, that woman that attacked the city, and the White Walker were not normal monsters. He remembers what Jinwoo told him at Chairman Go He's funeral, that he was going to kill the one responsible himself. Remembering that, tears started to fall from his eyes, thinking, this was the White Walker, and he thanks Jinwoo for avenging the death of their chairman. After a few days, all the hunters from around the world gathered under the gigantic gate that was still looming in the sky. China's 7-star hunter was also present in the crowd. He commented, the gate is massive, like I've heard. Even if all the hunters in the world gathered, they could just be sucked up into that gate and vanish. Thomas had also recovered and was telling the hunters, it will start soon. Wu was thinking, this is the first time so many hunters from all around the world have gathered in one place. I wonder how many of them will survive. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was looking at the gate, waiting for it to break. Cha approached him, saying, I've never seen you this nervous before. As they all were thinking, the gate started to break, and the hunters prepared to battle against the monsters that were about to emerge from it. As the army started to appear from the gate, Jinwoo was shocked as he saw shadow soldiers coming out of the gate. Slowly, the army started to enter this world. Chapter end here. For more, like and subscribe.